You're listening to The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath on WCPT 820.
I'm happy to be joined by Rita Hart. Rita is in her second term as the chairman of the Iowa Democrats. And look, given how under-resourced and how badly shellacked Democrats have been in the last decade in Iowa, this is a rare and very positive sense of continuity and a chance to really make things better, as she already has in the state. I think this re-election to a term where Democrats have not re-elected a chair in a while really speaks, to the plans and the progress she is making in this important state. Look, it's a tough hole to pull the party out of in Iowa, and we're going to talk a little bit about the progress already made and the opportunities ahead. Rita, thank you.
No, thank you, and I want to make sure that that we give credit where credit is due here. If, this was not a singular effort by a long shot. Going into this in 23, it was clear to me that it was going to take a lot of people making a lot of changes and doing a lot of hard work. And while it has been challenging, that's the good news is that so many good folks have stepped up to make the kinds of changes that are pushing us in the right direction here. And so it's a group effort and that is for sure.
On this show, we've talked to lots of Democratic Party chairs, and uh, what strikes me is not one of you can begin a sentence with "I." It's not one. It's all about the just building an effort of a lot of people and giving praise and thanks to all the people who show up and make stuff happen.
Well, that's the only way it works, right? Is if people do this together.
Yeah,
And they deserve the credit, right? Because
yeah,
that's what keeps the movement going, right? Is
yeah.
recognizing how many people it takes to do this kind of work.
We're in an era where I guess our politics can be described as organized money versus organized people. And and they got the money and they're organized about how they use it, and we are showing them, including in No Kings. I mean, well, just to be clear to everybody, I'm recording this not during our normal Saturday time, but a little bit early so that we can all be out at No Kings, right? And that's organized people, and it's making a difference that way.
Correct. And I think that the other thing that is clear here is that money is too big a deal in politics, right? That in order to be competitive, in order to get people elected, we have to play that money game too. And that is, a huge problem with politics right now, that there's too much money in it, and that discourages folks, that they recognize that we've got to get the money out of politics if people are really going to be heard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can thank John Roberts for that. But look, you've had Republican leadership in Iowa for a long time now, and Republicans are in charge in DC. So how's Iowa doing economically?
It is not a good story. And I think that that's another reason why people are invigorated here in the state of Iowa, because they are not happy with the fact that we are 49th in economic growth in comparison to the rest of the country, that
Mm-hmm.
we're 48th in personal income growth.
Mm,
That the state legislature, again, the Republicans have been in total control for nearly 10 years now, and they have made some big changes, which have not been good for healthcare, not been good for education, not been good for our economic vitality. And so as we look at the fact that our schools have slid down to the midpoint, if not lower,
right.
when that is such a value for Iowans and such an economic driver, right? I mean, this is a value that Iowans have had for a long time, and they were very proud of being number one, being number one or number two in the nation as far as education outputs are concerned, and to watch that education fall down and not be a help to us in attracting people to the state and keeping and retaining people in the state. That's a huge problem. And then you add to that the fact that that these state legislators have been in charge, and yet and they've been telling us that they're making these great economic decisions. At the same time, this last budget year, they were not able to balance the budget unless they dipped into the savings accounts by almost $1 billion. This is not boding well for the future here. And
No.
so, yeah, people are not happy, and that has motivated a lot of Iowans to get more involved.
Yeah, good. And I look, as we speak, it's harvest time. People are out bringing in the crops. That is an enormous effort. Farmers are working long hours, and like rural America is no stranger to hard work. So how do these hardworking people hear it when they hear the government's shut down, but the Republicans are on vacation?
I think that's a basic value, and I'm glad you brought up the farming aspect, because you know, Paul and my husband and I are farmers, and we were out in the field till I don't know what time last night.
My wife is out in the combine as we speak with her
Oh, there
cousin
you go.
downstate in Illinois. Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we've got nothing to complain about this year as far as that hard work is concerned. It's been
Yep.
great weather. We've been lucky. We had a couple breakdowns, but nothing unusual.
Yep.
And we're going to get done early this year. But we know the pressures that are on farmers today with a low prices of both corn and soybeans, and this knowledge that we have that the markets are being irreversibly affected by the tariffs, right?
Right.
And so it makes people very nervous, and it's beyond our control. So that's when as farmers, you work hard just like everybody else does, right?
Yeah.
And you concentrate on the things that you have control over, but it's very frustrating. And so, yeah, again, it's a situation where um, we send these folks as our representatives to DC to do that hard work for us. And when
Mm-hmm.
they don't go and do it, and instead throw up their hands and blame everybody else and don't get the job done, that doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well with me. I'm
Well,
sure it doesn't sit well with you or your wife, and it
no, I
doesn't
mean
sit
they're
well
they're
with
on
them.
paid vacation right now while the government's shut down. Mike Johnson said, "Take the money and don't show up."
Unacceptable, right?
Unacceptable.
Yeah. And even if, some of them do, not take the paycheck, right? Knowing that they're going to get it back eventually and they can afford to do that, that smacks of elitism to me,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
Most people cannot afford to say, oh, that's okay. I won't take my paycheck this week and
Mm-hmm.
next week
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'll get paid back. No, they've got to pay their bills on a weekly basis. So yeah, it's again, I think people need to be reminded of who's in charge here. The Republicans have total control, and
Do
it's
people
up to them.
really need a reminder of that? I mean, they're out bragging about it every day. In my city, they're sending their troops to try and tell us they're in control every day.
Yep.
And there's no confusion about who's in charge and the damage they're doing here. But look, the things we've just talked about, the damage that Republicans have done to the economy in Iowa, the transgression to the values, like just like show up, hard work, teach the kids, these all present opportunities for Democrats, right? So let's turn to how you're going to take advantage of those opportunities. I mean, let me just say one more thing. Unless Republicans are completely distracted by the daily moral panic that, they're peddling. Oh, it's Antifa. Oh, it's there's a gay kid around the corner. Oh, it's I don't know, Pizzagate, whatever it is they make up to keep people distracted. But real life intervenes, and now it's harder for farmers to find markets, certainly for soybeans, and maybe price come down for corn too. I don't know. It's certainly tougher on people in cities and any parents who want to make sure their kids get a good education. It's kind of harder to distract everybody with this fantasy nonsense. So how do you organize to win in Iowa?
So that's the great word, right? It's about organization. And as you've noticed, and I'm sure many of your listeners know that here in Iowa, we've had several special elections since 24 that we've been able to overperform by more than 25 points, and we've been able to flip two seats in the state house and one in the state senate.
Mm-hmm.
I guess both in the state senate, we've
Mm-hmm.
been able to flip them from red to blue. And that is because we've done a couple things that I just think are basic, what most people want from the political world. They want to be able to vote for a candidate that they can trust, that has a record of working for other people, not just for themselves, that's not in it just for themselves, but understands what public service is all about and has a belief that if they do their job, that others' lives will be better as well, right? That's the kind of candidates we've been running in all of these special elections, and the voters have recognized that and
Mm-hmm.
rewarded us for it. But it doesn't happen magically, especially in an environment like we have here in Iowa, where Republicans have been winning in several cycles, right?
Yeah.
We
Yep.
got to organize, we got to put people to work, we've got to get people to understand who Democrats are, what they stand for, and that they are working for the working class. They are working for the middle class. They are working for people who go to work every day and need those paychecks every
Yep.
week.
Yep.
These are the people that these candidates are going to be really working hard for. And so it's not just about the candidates. And I think that's what people have to understand is that that's my job as a state party chair, is to make sure that we do have the organization that puts people to work in an effective way that helps great candidates actually get across the finish line.
That's terrific, Rita. Are you able to field candidates for all of the elections in the state? Have we found Democrats will run in every district?
We're working hard at that
Yep.
recruitment
Yep.
effort,
Yep.
and by we I mean I mean everybody has a
Yep. Yep. Yep.
responsibility here to seek out the people that would be best suited for these jobs. And so I'm very tickled that we have such a strong group of people that are already out there working hard
Yep.
and
Yep.
campaigning. We're gonna have primaries in all four of the congressional districts. We've got a real shot at the governorship in this state. We've got, surprisingly enough, we've got a very robust set of candidates that are going to be working hard to get the U.S. Senate seat turned blue. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, things are going.
I
We're
mean,
working hard on that
you
recruitment effort.
Democrats will never win if we don't ask people for their votes. So we have to be at campaigning everywhere. I mean, and sometimes, particularly in like the uphill fights in some of your legislative districts, you won't win the first time or the second time. But being out there, asking people for their votes, countering the lies when they get told, saying, "Oh, that's not right." Just getting a different voice out there over time, it makes such a difference. I look at your neighbor, Wisconsin, and how they have, broken the gerrymander and are moving, in the right direction. And like Iowa, the outcomes in people's lives. I mean, Wisconsin and Minnesota are practically the same state for a lot of reasons, economic reasons. And when Wisconsin went solidly Republican, all of those measures about people's lives got worse. The outcomes when Republicans lead states and the outcomes when Democrats lead states are different for the people in those states. Your neighbor, Wisconsin and Minnesota, are very similar states economically. And yet, in the years that Scott Walker and the Republicans ran Wisconsin, you have a real live example of those two states where private investment went up in Minnesota more than it did in Wisconsin, where measures of educational success went up in Minnesota far more than in Wisconsin, where public health measures went up in Minnesota and they didn't in Wisconsin. So you have examples that when Democrats lead, people do better. Real examples, not, and this has nothing to do with, you don't have to argue about any policy. You just look at people's lives. The measures of their lives are better. And there, of course, you and I know there are policy reasons for this, but for the public's benefit, their just lives are better. and they have more opportunities, and their kids have more opportunities. And here in Iowa, as you explained, Republican leadership has foreclosed those opportunities for kids, has polluted the water, has put children to work in factories at night, has done all kinds of things that just sort of are repellent to people's moral sense, and their lives aren't better. So you're out there organizing the good people of Iowa to go and tell that story and to find candidates who will deliver for people. That's fabulous. That's got to be, rewarding work.
Yeah, it certainly gives you a lot of purpose. And I would tell you that that's, what you just described is all comes from values, right? That that Democrats want people's lives to be better across the board, not just rich people, not just people who for some reason people think deserve to have certain things. That's why we believe in healthcare for everyone, right? That's why
Yep.
we
Yep.
believe that people are when they're working full time, they ought to be making enough money to not only just survive, but to have their families thrive. I
Yep.
mean, those are basic values that cause us to work on those aspects of the policy that are going to lift all boats. That's
Yep.
the bottom line.
So you have an open Senate seat in a Senate race. Um, Joni Ernst, I think, couldn't run again after she gave up her career in order to make Pete Hegseth the Secretary of Defense. It's still called Defense, no matter what the president says. Um, um, but offense is a better description for everything they're doing, for sure. It's so offensive. Uh, so she cast that vote knowing better. She cast that vote saying, "You have our back on women in the military," and then he promptly uh, is purging women from every leadership spot in the military and making it harder for them to serve. Um, she did that um, either because she's a fool or she did it knowingly and lied to people, but that now she can't run again in part because of that. So
In
how?
part,
In part, right?
in part, yeah.
In part. So what does the field look like, and how? And this is an interesting year. We might win that seat.
It's so totally different than what I expected, right? I just didn't expect her to implode quite the way she did.
Yep.
But I think part of that is, again, when President Trump came in January and did this shock and awe kind of approach, people got very upset here. They were angry, they were scared, they were very motivated. And so we had all kinds of Iowans showing up, questioning what was going on, questioning her, asking for more town halls, questioning why she was doing just exactly what you were saying. And I would say that, again, her priorities are different than ours. She's more interested in the power and the special interests than she is in average Iowans, right? And that's when an average Iowan yelled at her at a town hall and caused her to, say something that went viral, right? That we all
Right.
got to die.
We all got to die.
And now that really hurt her, I think, but I think she could have survived that. But when she doubled down with that video in the cemetery, that revealed a value and a nature that is so dismissive of the human beings that she's supposed to represent. And so as a result, it got a lot of people riled up. And not only are they showing up and speaking up and standing up, they are running for office.
Yeah.
And so now we have 6 people, 6 good candidates running for that Senate seat. They are working hard. I travel all across the state. They are right there with me. They are going everywhere. And they're talking to folks and listening to folks about the frustrations that they have when it comes to the policies that are in place now, and this big, ugly, lousy law that they passed that's going to make it harder for people who live in rural areas to get health care, for farmers to be able to continue to afford their health insurance,
Yep.
because that Affordable Care Act is the subsidies are no longer going to be there. So these are issues that we are speaking to that the Republicans have abandoned, and it's caused us to have a great opportunity to pick up that seat.
Rita, I think primaries are so important. And one of the reasons why, in my view, one of the reasons why we did not succeed in this very close presidential election that we just lost was that we didn't have the time to do a primary, to take the attention, after all, away from Donald Trump and onto Democrats, so that we could be out there talking to people, not one candidate, but five or six, spreading a message of shared values and also learning from people about their lives, what
Right.
works, what doesn't
Yeah,
work.
what's happening? Right.
Yeah, I mean, primaries are very important mechanisms for building our party, and we lost out on that in the presidential. So the fact that you have a lot of candidates all over that state, that counters Fox News. I mean, people, you're in a room with somebody, it matters a whole lot more than what you see on cable news.
And it's again, it's not rocket science to recognize that most people are not very political as far as being involved, and they lead their lives.
Yep.
They've got their own priorities, right? But they are good citizens, especially here in Iowa. We believe in our right to vote, and we exercise it, right? And we have a long history of being very involved in the vetting process of presidents, and so people have a heightened sense of their responsibility there and their ability, right, to get to really understand and get to know these candidates, and that trickles down all the way down to their local school board and the local library board, et cetera, right? And so this is an opportunity for us to listen to those folks
Hmm. Hmm.
and find out what life is like for each and every person. What challenges are they facing, and what are the solutions they're in? And that's what I think is exciting about our candidates, because they come from various backgrounds, and they've got strengths in those backgrounds, and they are the kind of people that if they don't know something, they're going to listen, try to
Hmm.
find out more, and they're going to
Hmm.
take that responsibility to take that issue and try to find a solution for it.
Do all of these candidates understand that their opponent it is the Republican Party as it exists today, and the people there, or are they spending their time beating each other up?
No, I would tell you that their priorities are talking about what the situation is on the ground right now here in Iowa. And
God, I love that.
it's clear
Yeah.
that there are so many issues that are really important to Iowans. The fact that we are not growing in
Yep.
population,
Yep. Yep.
that people are struggling to make ends meet, that the prices are getting higher and higher at the grocery stores, that we know that, again, as a result of this law that was just passed, our electricity bills are going to go higher, and that solar and wind energy are just got a huge hit, which has not only been great for us in the state of Iowa to keep our energy costs low, but it's been such a driver for employment and for making this state an
Hmm.
affordable place to
Hmm.
live,
Hmm.
which attracts more people of all stripes, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So again, we know, I think as Democrats, we know that we've got to have candidates that appeal to Democrats, but also to independents and to reasonable Republicans, because we're talking about the issues that really matter to folks.
Yeah, and now you're talking to them where they live. You're actually out there everywhere and having that conversation. It just matters so much. Hey, I'm a little familiar. I mean, I'm only across the border here in
Yeah.
Illinois, and
Hmm.
and in my life, there have been presidential campaigns that have drawn me to your state, in that crazy thing you call caucuses.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, from Illinois, in the last few years, there's been an enormous number of people in Chicago who say like, oh, there's not much we can do to help Democrats here. So they spend a lot of time campaigning in Wisconsin. What can people in your big neighbor over here do to help you in Iowa?
I think that that is the same thing that we have put to play with these special elections, right? That, these special elections happen in a very small area of the
Mm-hmm.
state,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody can help, right? I mean, by making phone calls from no matter where you live, by writing a postcard, by sending money,
Mm-hmm.
by encouraging these candidates, because it is hard to run. It takes a lot to put your name on the ballot these days, and they need all the encouragement that they can get. But we also need to get out there and knock on doors. And so, not everybody can do everything, right? Everybody needs to know what they're capable of, what they have time to do, and what suits them for their skill set, their talent set, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is something that everyone can do when they truly believe that this is important, and it's important for them to get involved.
Yeah. Can they go to the Iowa Democratic Party site and find out
Go
the opportunities? Yep.
Sure, go to iowademocrats.org,
Yep.
and there's a way to sign up there to volunteer. There's a way to sign up to donate, of course, and a way to just engage with us,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really important that people understand what's at stake here and how we can't turn this stuff around.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let me ask you, and you can tell me if I'm going a place you don't want to go, right? But you're working, you got a farm, you're doing your work, and something happens and says, I really want to raise my hand for the most thankless job in America, being a state party chair where the Democrats are underfunded and we haven't won in a while. Like what happened? Because you seem normal and sane, right? What happened that made you say, I have to do this?
Well, several things happened. And first, I would tell you that I ran for Congress here, right,
Yep,
in 2020.
I know that. Yeah.
And it was the closest race in all of US House history.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out through that process, I mean, that was a tricky time. It was the time of the insurrection. It was COVID. That was a tough race for
Yep.
so many reasons, on top of the fact that it was just so darn close, right? But what I found out there was that the Democratic Party was not as strong as the Republican Party. And
Mm-hmm.
so Marionette Miller Meeks in that race had a lot more underpinnings to her campaign, and we
Yep.
had to scrabble that much harder to get the same things done. So I knew that that was a problem. Now, after the election, I had to take some time to lick my wounds and to take care of my family. Lots of things happening there. But then 2022 comes along, and we have another bad election, right? Another disappointing election. And so I started asking questions, because I want this to turn around. I want to know, what are we doing that we could do differently and get better results, right? So I started asking some questions. I didn't get too many answers to my questions. What I got instead was a lot of people saying, yeah, that's a good question. You ought to run for chair.
Right.
You ought to
Right.
do this, right? And people, lots of people really kind of ambushed me on that, and really worked hard on that. Which, still, I was not looking for this job. And to your points of all the things you said, there's a lot of reasons to not take the job. But I have a responsibility here to my children and my grandchildren. I want Iowa to be a better place. I want it to
Mm-hmm.
be more welcoming. I want it to be more successful. And I want the nation to be more successful, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
so I'm always listening to that inner ear, right? But what I also heard was a lot of people saying, Rita, if you will step up and do this, I will do this part. I will help you in this regard. So a lot of people were willing to step up. And when I go around and talk to folks and have these conversations, that's one of my lines, is that I say, when I after 2022, we were all pretty depressed. You remember how you felt that way? But very few people thought, you know what, I need to run for state party chair.
Right.
Nobody did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I knew that this was going to be a really hard job, that it was going to be a lot of hours, that there was going to be things that I would not be able to predict, but that were going to come up and be barriers and be problems. And the end result of that is that I was not disappointed.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a really hard job,
Yep. Yep.
but it's very satisfying to take something from that point and try to make something good out of it. And working with all these people who also have that notion, who know that we can do better and are determined to get there, that's very gratifying.
Yeah. So I love what you're doing. I mean, and I think about my friend Ben Wickler, what he did when he was chair above you, but Anderson Clayton, what she's doing in
Yep,
North Carolina. There's a great group of Dem chairs out there, to work together to share best
correct.
practices. And in my life, I grew up in Illinois, where we have a different kind of Democratic Party. We have an old school Democratic Party that
Yeah.
was that all the great Democrats I know always run against, because it was organized as the party of political leadership and industry. It was a lobbying organization in some ways, right? And my former state uh, Speaker of the House reported to jail
Right.
2 days
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Powerful guy, right? So we've had a different kind. We have great candidates. Don't get me wrong, we have great candidates, and we have had. I'm proud of my governor. I'm proud of a lot of things that Illinois is doing, but we don't have a bottom-up Democratic Party here. That's not what we've had. But I see it happening in states like yours. I see it happening in North Carolina. It happened in Wisconsin, and that is the kind of energy that it's transformative of politics itself, but it builds a sense of community. Like you get people together and they go knock on doors and I don't know, I bet you there's none of the campaigns you have where young people don't fall in love and get married on a campaign, right? Where people just don't say, wow, I didn't know I'm the only one who feels this way. And suddenly you build a stronger community, build a stronger town. It's not just about the elections, it's about the society you live in. And it's fabulous what you're doing.
Well, that is the fun of it, right? Is that there's a fever around this kind of politics,
Yeah.
right? And you catch the fever,
Yep.
and that's you know one of the first phone calls I made when I took this job was to Ben Wickler.
Yeah.
Tell me where I go from here. And Anderson Clayton came to Iowa shortly
Yep.
after I started,
Yep.
and yes,
Oh my God, I'd
that
give anything to see the two of you out campaigning together. That would be so much fun.
Anderson she has so much energy. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So, but yeah, and that's infectious, right? But the bottom line is people want to be able to trust. They don't want it. They want to live their lives. They want somebody that they trust
Yep.
to be taking care of the governmental things that do affect their lives. And I don't think there's a lot of trust out there. And that's
No.
why most polls will tell you that people don't have any faith in either party. And a lot of that is, where they're getting their information and what kind of
Mm-hmm.
information they're
Mm-hmm.
receiving, et cetera. So we've got to show them. We can't just tell them because they're getting their stuff from,
Yep.
that we've got to show them. And you show them by showing up, by coming in there and
Yeah.
talking and having these conversations. That's it.
So, Rita, we're just about out of time, and I have not had even a second to talk to you about your governor's race, which also is enormously important. So we'll do this again sometime,
Okay,
if you will, but and we'll cover
absolutely.
that. But look, I want to end with this. Just I'm so impressed that Iowa Democrats have decided to let's have some stability. Let's let you lead. Let's bring everybody together because that's how you lead and build the kind of bottom up organization that's going to make your state stronger and make the country better. I love that.
You know what my story is that personifies that helps people to visualize what we've got to do goes back to the farm, right?
Mhm.
I grew up on a farm, dairy farm, hardworking, 8 brothers and sisters. And one of the jobs that we always have to do on the farm that is like this is the job of picking up rocks every year, right? And so I talk about that, about how this job of turning this party around and getting the votes that we need to get Democrats elected is just one task at a time, one rock at a time. And so my dad would line us up on the edge of the field. And
Yep.
I figured out soon that my job, I'm the middle child. I got four
Yep.
older and four younger. My job is to get the rocks that I can handle the best and get them up on the rack as fast as I can. And we work as a team.
Yep.
And you leave the smaller ones for the smaller kids and the
Yep.
bigger ones for the bigger kids. And you work as a team across that field. And when you get to the end of it, you look back and you see that you've accomplished something. Now, is the job done? Absolutely not. You're not going to get every rock, and there are a whole bunch of them are going to come back next spring.
You
So
can never finish picking up rocks.
that's right. It's
Yeah,
never
yeah,
done, and that's the way it is
yeah.
with getting people involved in campaigns and winning elections. The work is never done because there's always more to do to help people to have a better life.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to end. Thank you, Rita, very much. And for all those of you listening, help out in Iowa. Go to the Iowa Dem site, volunteer, spend some money, help them out. It's really important. And, winning back rural America, I think we have a chance for the first time in decades. Decades. So let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. We're all in this together. That's right.
Thank you, Rita.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.